Well, hello there again, friends. Today is 3/3/2022, and today is the Odin Project Vlog Day 70. And I apologize for not putting a video out in a little while. Life got crazy, I got busy, wasn't able to put a lot of time into this, and when I got back to it, basically I got hung up on tables. Not in a bad way. Um, eh, I'll precursor it with this, as you'll see when we go through here. uh, the theme here throughout 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 through today we'll be going over SVG and tables. But the theme has been, as you guys have seen, is there's not been anything to work on as far as uh, sample code, examples, exercises. There's not really been anything to work through, except what they provide in the MDN articles up to this point. And so I I really haven't been doing a lot of it. I've just been doing a lot of reading, and so basically SVG is reading. There's not really a lot to do with it. We'll go over it briefly. And then tables, there was a lot of exercises inside of the assignments, but there was nothing, as you'll see, there was nothing that top said you needed to do, but the articles that recommended said to follow along, and they had a bunch of coding tutorials, and that's what you see all these tabs up here for. And so I got hung up on that as far as like, man, I got my wish for for work. Plenty of coding opportunity with tables. So my original idea was I did all these and I was gonna take you through them one by one, but I quickly realized as I was going through the articles that they were stacking up pretty fast, and I didn't want to make this a 30-minute video unnecessarily just going over tables. So at the very end of this section, there's a basically an assessment they call it, and that's what we'll go through. So I know I kind of spat that at you real quick there up front, but without further ado, we'll get started here and just get to that here in a minute. So let's start out first with the SVG. I'm going to kind of do the format I did last video, where I just kind of briefly go over the learning lesson, or the knowledge checks at the end. This is just really wordy. It's good. Don't skip it for sure. Um, so SVG is a type of graphics that's used. It has XML basically behind it, and SVG. Sorry, it's been a couple days since I've worked on this one, so I've been spending a lot of time on uh, HTML tables that I kind of forgot about this one. So it could do icons, graphics, charts, large simple images, pattern backgrounds, and you can apply SVG filters. SVG stands for Scalable Vector Graphic. I knew I wasn't going to remember that. So let's just go down here. Don't skip this. Read through it all. Um, you see there's not actually even an assignment section. There's just a lot of embedded articles that you should understand and follow through and run through the code pens, the autonomy SVG. Just read through all this. And then there's additional resources. I perused them quickly, but I didn't spend a lot of time on it. Um, and then knowledge checks. So what is the XLMNS? It stands for the XLM namespace. This is specifically what dialect of XML you're using using it, as in this case. That dialect is the SVG language spec. Without it, some browsers will not render your image or render it incorrectly. And you can hit this MDN article if you want a full breakdown of what every attribute is in the XML and how it works. For the brevity of this video, I won't go into that detail because it's quite a rabbit hole. So you need to take your time on it and go ahead and go through it on your own. Typically, you will not want to create SVGs from scratch in your code. Basically, you get SVGs from places, or you can create them if you really want to in Adobe Illustrator and Figma. But so essentially, that's kind of the skinny on that. What's next one? Attribute. Okay. So it's asking what the attribute is. Oh, so that's just saying it's asking what. Sorry, I kind of glossed over that part. So this is basically the attribute itself is in the SVG tag in HTML, and all that's doing is going out to your. It's wanting to know where the file is located. So this one, an example, is on w3.org, but it's basically just where are you telling your browser to go get that file from? It could be on a local box, your box, a web server like that, a URL, that sort of stuff. What are some situations where you wouldn't want to use SVG? So SVGs, they talk about some drawbacks here. Every single detail of an image needs to be written out as XML, so they're extremely inefficient at storing complex images because of that. And for your image is supposed to be photorealistic. Excuse me. If your image is supposed to be photorealistic, or it has some fine detail or texture, then SVGs are the wrong tool for the job because they're very inefficient at storing those complex images. So basically, SVGs are great for relatively simple images, but because every single detail of the image needs to be written out in XML, that's why it becomes inefficient. So basically, they're scalable. They're great because they're small. The file size is small, but the drawback is it all has to be in the XML. So if you don't embed your XML in the file, there is I think it talks about in one of the articles, if I remember right, there is the ability to actually put the XML in your HTML, and that's a bad practice because it will render your site useless and basically unmanageable to parse through that code because XML files get large very, very fast because they're so detailed. And then what are the benefits of inlining your SVGs? What are the drawbacks? Okay, so see if I remember this. Yeah, here you go. Alternative inline to your SVGs by pasting their contents directly into your code, your web page code, rather than linking it. This will it will still render correctly, but the SVG's properties will be visible to your code, which will allow you to alter images dynamically via CSS or JavaScript. And inlining sorry, I keep saying the wrong word. Inlining SVGs allows you to unlock their full potential, but it also comes with some serious drawbacks. It makes your code harder to read, makes your page less cacheable. Just as I was saying, if you try to, put that code directly into your browser or directly into your page, it makes it less cacheable. And if it's a large SVG, it might actually delay the rest of your page from loading. So that's the problem with inlining it into your code. Basically, the best practice is to always provide a URL image if you can, like you have it here. Point it from somewhere, a web server, a local space inside your web server, or a remote server or something like that. Don't try not to embed it into your page. That's the best piece of advice there. So I already spent more than the amount of time I wanted to spend on SVGs, so we're going to go ahead and move on. So here's tables. 26% complete with the intermediate HTML and CSS, if I didn't say that in the beginning. So I won't read through all this. This is good stuff. It doesn't seem very long compared to SVGs, but tables, there is a lot to do here. So all these articles here in the assignments have exercises in them, and I highly encourage you, as you've seen me done here, I won't go through them, but go through the table exercises, the basics, the advanced, and do the assessment after you're done. And this will put everything basically in a nice bow and gives you something to practice with. So that's what we'll go over now. If you have not done anything with tables yet, you might want to wait on this part of the video and maybe come back after you've done it, because I'm going to abbreviate a lot of stuff, so the code may not make sense to you if you've not at least read through the assignments and read through this small section of top articles. So anyway, without further ado, let's hit up the editor. I'm going to put this over here, and I'm going to throw this to the side. So it's not like perfectly visible, but it gets the job done. So so what we have here is we have a let's see if I can get to the article. Okay, so structuring. Sorry, make sure I get to the right one here. Okay, yep. So basically, it has you create this blank template and download this minimal table CSS and planets data text file in a new directory. And I basically have done that. So I created a index10.html and I created a styles10.css. And we won't be going over the CSS. It's not necessary for this video, but for understanding on your own, please do so. We do not mark up CSS in this particular exercise, so we won't be going over it. And then I didn't download the planet's data. I just opened up the GitHub here because you need this data to go to create your table. So essentially, what we'll do here. Following steps describe what you need to do to complete the table. All the data you need is contained in the planet's data text file. If you have trouble visualizing the data, look at the live example above or try drawing a diagram. So, so what I did was I did what it, followed the steps. So we open it. And we start off by giving an outer container, a table header, and a table body. And so, all these steps are basically in order the way I've done it here. So I'm not going to go back and forth too much for the sake of time on the video because we're already at 12 minutes. But basically what I'm showing you here is a scoped solution that gets all this done and read through the hints. It's a very good exercise. And then this is what you want your end table to look like. So I compared it to this as I was working on it. And that gets me to this right here. And remember, the data comes from this GitHub repo location. Excuse me, I didn't mean to cough in your ear. Sorry about that. So here we are. So starting up here, we have a table. We start with an opening table. And we have a caption at the top. Caption tab with the data for the caption. I won't read through it for the sake of time. And then we have a call group, and the call group is short for column group, and this is basically through the reading you learn that you can create a tag with call group that basically groups all your styling for columns together, and then you can scope it when you do the TH, which stands for table headers. So when you do the scope call, it will go back up in here and it'll apply the not CSS but the styling of these attributes to your particular header there. So we start with a span of 2 on the column, which means that you learn in the text that span 2 means we're going to span 2 columns. Like this width of this terrestrial planet here is 2 columns wide. And we have a styling of border 2 pixels solid and black, just kind of like CSS, just like it sounds. And we have another span of 9, which this span takes care of the width. So if you count this up, there should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there's nine data, if you will, TD, which stands for table data. So we'll see those. There's 9 table data columns, and then so that's where that comes from. And then we open it up with a T head. So this stands for table head. So you have table head and you have body, and this kind of satisfies one of the first requirements, was to break that out. So right here is the table head, and this what it sounds like. It's like your head file in your HTML. So this is where your header information goes. So we have a TR tag, which is table row. So we're creating a table row with all of these table header scoped columns inside of it, and that's where we get our all of our columns. So you see name, mass, diameter, density, gravity, length of day. Those are all up here, and they're bolded based on the CSS that we're not going to go over in this video vlog, but are right here. And this is copied over from the exercise, from the minimal CSS, and so that's applied correctly. We don't do anything with it. It's already done for us. Not part of this exercise. So then we move down to the body. So you have T-body, which stands for table body, and that's all of this right there. So a lot of stuff. So there actually is another one called T footer, which we don't have a table footer in this particular example. And they tell you that in the instructions not to create a table footer. So table body, inside of that is a whole bunch of sections of table rows, and so this is going to get redundant, so I'm only going to explain the first couple, and then you'll see the rest. So the first one we have is a table header, row span of 4. So that means that we're going to span rows, which means we're going to span. So like for example, this terrestrial planets here, which is the one we're on. Row span 4 means it's going to cover four rows wide, and then column span 2, meaning we already went over that. So it's going to span 2 columns wide. So that's why it's the size it is. And then we have a scope applied to it. Now this is row group. This is different than column group. So we don't have a row group if that makes sense, as we did up here with the column group. You can create a row group, but for this example, I didn't. You just scope it out row group, and then as long as you call all your other scopes that you want to be inside of row group the exact same name without typos, it will apply the your CSS and any other custom scoped attributes correctly. So there's your terrestrial planets table header. And we have another table header that's scoped called row, and that's Mercury. And so that's the first one right here. And then here is TD is your table data. So all this right here is going from, even though it's confusing because it's read linearly, but the browser will render it horizontally as table data. So it's going to go across, bam, 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 just like that all the way across. So if you follow that data all the way across, now my data may have a little bit of typos in it. I was doing this late last night, so disregard any typos if you see any in my my numbers, because this is all manually hand jammed. So you get down here, you close the tag with the TR. You close in the table row, so the browser knows that you're done with that. New table row is opened, and you have the first one is a table header scope row again, as we want to scope the rows together so they do certain things. And we have Venus, which gets that bold. That's coming from the CSS and in the scope. And then we have, again, same thing, all table data going across. And then, but this one, we have a blank for the last table data, which that's our notes section at the very end. We don't have anything in this sample for anything to put in there, so you have to include a blank TD tags and closing tags. If you don't, it won't actually create the cell, and it will shift everything to the right. So it's important to know that. And then I won't again. So it's going to start getting repetitive. So we do one for Earth, Mars, and then when you get down here, this is just what's a little bit different. I'm going to go over the variants here. So you have excuse me, you have table header information for Jovian planets, gas giants, ice giants, and dwarf planets. But here we only have it for a couple of them, the jovial planets and the gas giants and Jupiter. And that's because in this particular row, this is how we're rowing it. So as you can see, jovial plants will get a row space of 4, so it's going to consume 4 here, 2 on the column. So I'm sorry, excuse me, single on the column, so there's no column span, and then it's going to be put into that row group scope, which is the rest, all of these right here. Sorry, that highlighted bad. All these right here in this section, and then the row span for gas giants is 2, which means that it's only, you know, spanning half the jovial, and then ice giants, which we don't see here because it's in the next 2 down table rows. It's sharing the same stuff. So then we have the scope row for Jupiter, and then all the table data that goes for that row. And then we have the next row for Saturn. So you have to do this in order, and it seems weird to read it like this because when you see the, I guess it's hard for me to explain the end result because the end result doesn't necessarily follow linearly the code, and that's kind of by design because that's the way tables work, and that's why we do row spans and scopes, so you can have stuff share the same attributes but be at different places in your code, if that makes sense. So that's why we have the row group, and it's doing just that. So down here we have the ice giants, which is right here, but it has that row group scope. So the browser knows when you say that, when you put that in there, the browser knows that, hey, I'm like the rest of these, and I'm going to share space with these. And so there, it's got the row span of 2, just like gas giants. And then you have Uranus and all the TD data to go with that. And same thing with Neptune. And then down here you have dwarf planets, column span 2. So this one does span, like terrestrial planets, it does span 2 columns. And it's scoped in the row group like we want. So it's going to basically behave and act like the rest of these, get the same CSS, the same bold, and share the same floor plan, if you will. And then we have the Pluto and all the Pluto data, and that is it. So I kind of went through that fast, so feel free to watch it again for more understanding, and to because I went through that a little quick. So down here we have our closing tag for the body, the table body, and then we actually close the whole table here, and that's it. So hope you guys enjoyed today's video, and again, I apologize it took me a while to get it out. As you can see, I went crazy with the but it's good. I learned a lot, and I encourage you guys to take your time and go through all the examples and all of the learning modules, simply because there is no top exercises right now, so you're not really learning because you're not doing. You'll learn, obviously. Some of you will learn better than others based on how your learning style is, based on reading. But I learn best by doing. I soak in more and retain more by doing, not by just reading it. So I encourage you guys to also type this stuff out like I did. Don't copy and paste it because you don't really learn that way either. Even if even for like your table data when you're going in and just getting the data off the GitHub page here, to go ahead and take the time to type that out. Don't try not to copy and paste it. I guess you can if you want, but anyway, this video's went long. I kind of figured it would. So with all that said, please like, share, and subscribe to see more content. And thank you for all the new subscribers. I see you. I see I've gotten quite a few in the last week or so, and I appreciate and welcome each and every one of you here. And I hope that I can provide you with value through these vlog videos. And let me know in the comments how you guys are doing with this exercise. And we'll be moving on to the next one next time. So with all that said, till next time, see ya.